And there we are. We are live, CEO Wisdom Podcast with a special guest today, Stefy Bau. She is CEO at Init Sports, has a fascinating background, started racing motocross, got injured, and transitioned to the esports world. Stefy, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a bit more about your story and Init Sports.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much, Charles. For sure, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here. And thank you for everybody to listening in. So, yes, my name is Stefy Bau, and I'm originally from Italy. And at 6 years old, I looked at my mom and dad in the eyes and say, one day I will become a motocross champion. Of course, they were like, what? What do you want to do? And, but, it was my passion, my family were a fan of the sport. So they ended up usually going to watch the World Championship round when it was coming to Italy. So since I was born, basically, I was going with them. So kind of got exposed to that sport at a super young age. And then, I wanted to do that. My parents were crazy enough that they bought me a motorcycle, a real one, called a Pee-wee. And just made for kids and all the equipment. So I look like a robot, like with all of the protection on. And then, I start riding in the field in front of the house and, kind of like it became natural for me. And then we started racing and I had a lot of success since the beginning. And then I sticked with it. And I got to the United States because of my sport. And that was a very cool thing. So that dream that I had at 6 years old to become a champion and go to America, it happened. And I was able to win 3 world titles and competed with the men in the top of the sport and really trying to open doors for women and minority that wanted to be part of something that is considered male dominated. So that's my racing career.
And what about like what you're up to nowadays? Because you transitioned. I mean, your injury is pretty gross. I mean, you broke like 2 ankles. They wanted to amputate you. I mean, just the shock and the sheer impact of taking the human that weighs at least 120 in your case, magnifying the energy and landing on 2 things that are not made to land on that energy must have caused incredible damage and pain. Tell us about like when you were in the hospital bed, thinking, shit, my career is over. What am I going to do now?
For sure. Well, at first it was actually not even in the hospital bed. When I was doing that jump, as a professional athlete, you realized that something bad was going to happen. I knew it, when I was still in the air. And it was like, first thing is like, dang, I'm going to miss next week race. That was the first thing. And the second one is like, oh, yeah, I would be in the hospital. This is going to hurt. So, but as a true athlete, even though I was on the operating room and the surgeon was telling me there is very little chance that you come out of the operating room with 2 legs attached. We're going to have to cut them off. My question to the surgeon was like, okay, but where can I go back racing? So that's the mind and the mentality of a racer and a professional athlete. You just never wanted to hear it, that it's the end, you always, as you grow up thinking and racing that you fell down 10 times, you get up 11, so it was embedded in me. So it was hard, as you said it was crazy, both ankle destroyed. And at first, I still stay on it and think like, okay, what can we do to fix this? What can we do to fix this? So I'm going to go back racing and whatnot. And then finally, reality sets in. And then I realized that my life changed like that. All of a sudden, I couldn't do any more what I did, my entire life. And you never really prepare for that when it happens like this. Again, if you are an athlete, you never think that you're going to stop being an athlete. You think that you're going to always be one. So, it was hard. I went in a dark place for a little bit, which is something that happens, to people, for me, I was just like, it's almost like my entire identity got ripped away from me, right? So I'm like, okay, so who is Stefy now? What am I going to do, So it was hard, but like with the help of friends and family, you know, like I started to look at the light at the end of the tunnel, and then finally, you know, made the switch and looked at things in a way that I can turn this negative into a positive. And I was 28 years old when I got hurt. So, you know, in reality, I started to think and say to myself, hey, I had an amazing career up until 28. Now I can start a new one as successful, right? Whereas a lot of people at 20 years old, they still don't know what they're going to do when they grow up, right? So I kind of like turn it around in that way. And then I moved from one side of the fence to the other side of the fence and stay involved into motorsport and as a whole.
All right, before we get to that, I want to talk about that period of your life and a couple of tips for athletes that go through there, because yeah, it's like ripping a bandage. It's way more than that, because that's been your whole life up to this far. I'm this champion. I've won title. I've competed in Gets Man. Now what am I? You know, I'm in this hospital bed, high on morphine and stuff. So first, I think there needs to be a mental transition that, oh, my new sport now is being positive, trying to walk, try to make something productive out of this day. And that mindset is quite hard to adapt to, especially if you're like training on a daily basis. And it's a very hard pivot, you know, it's like you don't have much time
Yes.
to do it. Then like I'd warn athletes not to get hooked on the morphine, because it makes you lazy, and it makes you a shadow of yourself, makes you feel good, right? It removes the pain, but what about the mental pain that you're slowly but surely creating? And yeah, I mean, you weren't an entrepreneur back in these days, you know, you were used to being an athlete. So how was that transition for you? Because yes, you probably went to very dark places. How did you get out of the valley of the shadow of depths there?
Yeah, well, you know, there is a lot of questions you put it out there all at once. So I would say that when you finally realize that you will not be able to do what you've done, you know, up until that point, it's hard. It's a hard realization. But again, you know, like I was very happy and lucky to have a family around, you know, like they make you feel like the person that you are. And yes, maybe I wasn't an entrepreneur back then, but kind of like when you are an athlete, you are sort of an entrepreneur, because you have to be able to perform and promote yourself. So you are your own product in a way. So it's very similar to what you do in entrepreneur life. But yeah, you know, like again, like I think that what make the big pivot for me is realizing that I can have another successful career. Okay, so it's not that that's gonna be it and my life is done, right? So at 28, I can pivot on this and then do something as meaningful, you know, as I did before. And to tell you the truth, you know, like immediately what happened was that I fall back into what I knew, which is coaching. You know, so I went back and I coach other people. So that kind of like started an old positive energy within myself, because now I was starting to be able to look at the world in a way that first it was me as a racer. And now, you know, I was kind of forced to, in a way, look at others more. And that was beautiful, because I started to see the beauty in helping other people to be successful. And it was fantastic, you know, and that kind of like started this snowfall of positive energies that continue to go into all the businesses that I made, you know, like after the injury up until now, what I'm doing now.
Before we get to the coaching part and the esports part, you mentioned your parents twice so far. So any parenting lesson? Because me, I'm the wild one. My wife is like the more conservative one. I give full freedom to my eventual children's. Now we have dog, and I pretty much let them do whatever they want. But when they go out of boundaries, they respect my authority, you know. But generally speaking, I give them a blank card, and I'm like, do whatever you want, be free to explore. Any lessons for parents out there that want happy and free and entrepreneurial children's?
Yeah, well, I'm not a parent, so I cannot really speak on behalf of a parent, but I can tell you that what my parents did for me was really to let me be me. And that's the most important thing that I feel a parent should do with their own kids, is like, let them be who they are, let them learn and explore and have experiences, and eventually they will come around and figure it out. Yep, that is what I like. And then as a parent, you also always want to support them. So be there for them, and having the desire to help them, do what they would like to do in life. And that worked for me. And I hope that a lot of parents out there, whatever that is, because a kid, they might grow up in a different era than you as a parent, so might have different ways of looking at life. It doesn't matter, just support them, be there for them, and just teach them respect, and which is the number one thing, and work hard and be good.
And there's a lot of lessons to be drawn from parenting to coaching. Coaching is being like this fatherly or motherly present and giving good advice and being there to support your clients, especially when things go wrong. What have you seen in your coaching client as negative or toxic patterns that constantly come up, and what kind of solutions do you have for that?
Yes, I think the most difficult thing for a lot of individuals is they are afraid to fail. But you have to fail. You have to fail to grow. There is not any other way around. So that's one of the things that I always say to everybody that comes around, and want to work with me. Say, don't worry about it. Stuff are going to happen. There is always a solution. So don't focus on the negative side, but focus on the positive, how you can come out of that situation. That's, I think, the true spirit of an entrepreneur. Just keep on going, learn from the mistakes and build upon that, and try to avoid the mistake next time. But it's going to happen. Nobody is born having like a manual that know everything, right? So you just have to go through it. Sometimes it's very painful, but thinking in this way, even if it's painful, when you get to the success on the other end, everything can look like just a piece of cake.
Exactly. And isn't that life, that George St. Pierre, he had a quote that I think he said a couple of months ago, that there's no pleasure without pain. I'm not sure if I fully agree with that one, or maybe I don't even realize it because I impose so much pain on myself, whether it is through my businesses or, running extreme distances and so forth. I think it's really got a part of my life, or just taking 15 meetings on a daily basis with CEOs. But do you agree with that there's no pleasure without pain?
Probably not necessarily put it in that way. I will maybe say that pain is part of the process. It's going to come at some point, so if you know that that's going to come, then you just prepare yourself to deal with that pain the best you could. It's not that the pain, there is no happiness without pain. I think everyone should try to have the least amount of pain possible. But if you change your way of thinking and say it is just part of the process, it's going to happen, then you look at it in a little bit of a different light, and then immediately you can say, okay, it's just temporarily, we're going to go through and we're going to come out better at the other end.
Right. These mental tools, sometimes they're just as simple as accepting them, just downloading stuff in your brain and accepting this as a reality. I find if you think of muscles as well, you need to break them so they grow. And my theory of happiness is life is growth. If you grow, you're going to be happy. In my case, certainly true. Moving on from the coaching life to the CEO life, tell us about how that happened. Tell us about Hug Me app, which is quite interesting.
Yes.
Tell us about Fantic and your esports business.
Yes. So, again, the Hug Me app that you brought out was like an idea. I'm this kind of person, right? So if I have an idea, I execute it. I think it comes from the years and years of being a professional athlete, but that's kind of like how I am. So for the Hug Me Happen, it happened because I thought, we live in such a connected world that sometimes we forget to have interaction with people that it's meaningful, right? But technology is part of our own life. So I came up with this idea to create an app where people can send and receive virtual hugs, all over the world. And when we put it out, it was almost like, hey, let's try, let's do it. CNN actually picked it up and made a very big deal about it. And we got like in 2 weeks span since we launched it, like 80,000 people on the app. We were not prepared at all, but it was cool. It was just an experiment, I would say, that it shows that the world do appreciate things that they are done with the concept of bringing positive energy. And it felt very good to have comments from people who said, if I was having a bad day and then all of a sudden on the app somebody was sending me a hug, immediately my day was going to get better, right? So it's all about the positive energy and in the end spreading love, even on people that you don't know, which is very important, right? Then, you mentioned Fantic. So, one of the things that I ended up doing again, this one was another fun way how it started. It was because I was actually in Italy and I was in a winery in Italy, and all of a sudden the owner of the winery comes over and starts talking with me and my friend that we were there, enjoying, a flight of wine to taste. And then all of a sudden it happens, the guy will start learning that the guy knew Fantic and he was an investor in Fantic. Fantic is an Italian company, it's a very old company. It's been in business since 1968. That creates motorcycles. So I knew them from the motorcycle world. So my friend that was with me immediately started to pump me up and say, do you know the Stefy, and all of that. So this guy that is an investor in Fantic say, oh, you live in America. We should talk with the CEO of the company because we wanted to come to America. And at that night, we were a little drunk because he started to come and pour like very good bottle of wine. It said, we called the CEO and the CEO knew about me, because of my history in the sport. And it's like, yes, let's make it happen. Let's open the branch in the US and you can be the CEO. So it's kind of like about being in the right place in the right time. And I guess the lesson that we like to share about that is like, never be shy. Just talk what you are good at, about your skills. And this is always a good opportunity because you don't know what, it could lead to. So that was it, it was a good experience. I managed the company here in the US for 4 years, and we did mountain biking, and street bike because Fantic developed a e-bike segment. So in the US, we ended up just doing the e-bike segment, and it was very good because it was just about in the beginning of the movement in the US. So I got to, learn and be around the table with the CEO, Specialized and Track and Canyon, and all of these people, to kind of like improve the access, of people that wanted to use e-bikes. So that was a good experience. I'm currently, a e-mountain bike user, even though I don't work in the industry anymore, but I love it, it's super fun. I think it helps bringing more people outdoors, and get them to experience trails and nature and whatnot.
Yeah, we talked about mountain biking, one of my favorite sports, lots of adrenaline. Motocross, you put an engine on something, all of a sudden everything becomes faster and more dangerous. I want to talk about just treat like quick neuroscience model before I add to my last question. Well, your Hug Me app, it's oxytocin. So you're trying to deliver oxytocin virtually, which is quite interesting. Facebook, it started with poke, and then there's like the support emoji, which is interesting also because there's a lot of hate on social media. And I think it's a very good thing that you started there. Second, your brain was kind of hardwired to not sense fear, sort of. I mean, making these big jumps, so makes, I think, everything more easy on your end. And yeah, it would be just fun to, I don't know, plug like VR headsets on people and have their brain make quick decisions, to just like fire that brain muscle constantly, just like Alex Honnold climbing mountains without a rope, so that is quite fascinating to me. And then I think you transition all of that into this new career of yours, which is fascinating. My last question is, what do you have ahead of you for the rest of this year? Like, what are you focusing on with these 4 months left to this year?
Yes, so like in 2020, I created a new company again. It's called Init Sports. And that happened because I was in Italy and I saw my little niece that she was spending 2 to 3 hours a day watching people playing video games. And I'm like, wow, this is very interesting, like the younger demographic is using this digital medium to entertain themselves. So immediately, again, you're right on when you say that I don't have any fear. Yes, my wife always say that all the time too. But I said, hey, this can be a great opportunity to bring more female and minorities into a sport that is motocross and motorsport as a whole by using a digital medium. Right. So then in that way, you take away all of the fear aspect because you don't get hurt, like by playing digitally, but also like the cost of entering those sports, because it's very expensive. If you want to do go-karting to eventually have a career in car racing or motocross, motorcycling, it's expensive to start. So this way it takes away all the barriers. Then because it was 2020, Formula One was teaching everybody that this was the way to keep people entertained, because races were not happening and the professional race car driver were actually playing the games. So all of a sudden now you have the regular demographic be able to be with their idol. And that was magic in the happening, So I saw the opportunity, and I created the company Init Esports. And with that, we have two pillars. One is the motorcycle one, because my heart is there. And the other one is about sim racing events, and we do online and in real life event. They've been incredibly successful, and we tend to focus a lot to bring women in and minorities in. And so we are creating now all of these bridges with the organization, because we are able to prove that this is a viable option to get more people behind the wheels, of the sport. So end of year, we're going to be doing more of the program called a Sim for STEM. So Sim for STEM is a program where we use a simulator and STEM activities. We bring them into schools. So we have done it in Indianapolis during the Indianapolis 500. We're going to be doing the show in Detroit during the auto show. So it's about bringing more kids, to experience math, science, and technology, and then apply what they're learning in simulator. And it's super fun, and people like it, and schools are very interested about it. So end of year, there's going to be that. Then a few activation in Mexico, for the Formula One. At the airport, we're going to bring a sim there, and then Mexico City, and then at the Pan American game down in Chile, we're going to be doing a sim racing event down there. And so continue to grow and be inspirational and make school look cool for kids, but also, give everybody opportunity to be behind the wheel and have fun.
It's just wonderful, Steph. Round one, I guess, because I'd have a ton of more questions for you. Where can people find out more about you and Init?
Yes, so for me personally, I'm on LinkedIn. That's my favorite, social media platform. And it's linkedin.com/Stefy Bau. And then, if you want to learn about the competition that we do for esports, you can go on initesports.gg. And there you can find everything that we have going on, and watch replays. We did this mini documentary of a show called Screen to Speed. So screen from the digital world to speed to in real life, which the winner got into a Porsche Cup car. And this woman that was the winner of the digital competition, she's never drove a car before. Never.
No way.
You know, like she's like used public transportation to go around. She's 22 years old. And we put her in a real Porsche Cup car. And the result was amazing because she plays Sims. And when we put it on in the car, we have there a professional race car driver, female, as a coach. And in 17 laps, she rode only 2 seconds slower than the professional race car driver.
Whoa.
Out of this world. Insane, like mind blown.
And she must have been like in pure flow driving that thing, feeling the vibration of the engine and the sound and the G-force. Like she must have been in pure flow state.
Yes, absolutely. But it proves that sim racing is a viable option, right?
Yeah.
So she's doing this at home, you know, and then we put in the real car at the same track, you know, like she's playing at home, and she was able